What's going on, you guys? Welcome back, Sales Bro Pod. I think this is episode 25. This time around, we've got Mr. Larry Antiporda.
What's
Larry,
up,
thanks for
crew? Of
coming on, man.
course. Super stoked to be here, Dylan. Appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah, for sure. For everyone listening, this is officially our first time speaking. We've chatted a little bit in the DMs. I actually got somebody connected to, I guess, one of the teams you were on, which is super a good way to start a relationship, I guess we could say. Um,
Right.
so yeah, man, Larry, appreciate you coming on. For the people that do not know who you are yet, what are you up to? Yeah, let's start there. Like, what are you currently up to?
Absolutely, man. So, best way to invite you guys to think about it is I'm a fractional sales manager. So, one of the things I really just love doing is helping a lot of these high ticket coaching companies, online space companies scale to multiple seven figures. So, I've scaled four teams to seven figures now. Originally was three on my Twitter, but officially as of last month, got my fourth under the bag. So super
Sweet.
stoked for that. I am also like a sales coach in a sense. I do some sales coaching on the side, but a lot of my work that I love doing, as opposed to just launching my own sales coaching offer, is actually being hands on and being in the trenches with business owners to help develop their own internal sales team. So
Yeah.
really working with guys like, who are closers like you guys or setters like you guys, take you guys from the beginning and really help you guys actually develop inside your current team, almost being kind of that guy in the back corner in your pocket to
Yeah.
help develop a lot of these setters and closers
Yeah. I'm sorry. I think I don't know. I just want to make sure I heard you right. Did you say seven figures per month or per year?
per year. So
Okay.
I've helped
Okay.
certain people get to a point where it's like million and a half per year or a million and a half a year, right? I've helped some people get to 3 million a year.
Okay.
Oftentimes the sweet spot when I work with the company is they're usually only about 40 50K per month, so about the half million mark. I
Cool.
come in here and really get them their first $1 million year.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I want to dive more into that, but I want to take it back first. I know we were just talking prior. You're in New York City. Are you in the city now?
Yeah, so I'm
Okay.
actually a West Coast kid that actually adopted the East Coast. I recently just moved to East Coast in New York City specifically last
Yeah.
August. So I'm coming up in a year on the East Coast.
Okay. So West Coast kid, like LA area or like what
Yeah,
part?
great question, man. So I might ruffle some feathers. I'm not the biggest fan of LA. I've actually lived in parts of LA. Originally, if you really want my whole backstory, I was actually born in the Philippines. So I'm a first generation immigrant, moved to America when I was young. First lived my first half of my life really in like San Francisco Bay Area. So
Mm.
I'm like a lot of those guys are NorCal is how they like to say it.
Yeah.
NorCal and SoCal, completely different people. And then I got my ass over to Southern California at the kind of the second half of my life. So lived in
Okay.
San Diego, was a huge Padres fan. Lived there
Yep.
for a couple years before I went nomadic for a little bit, and then eventually chose New York as my home.
Cool. Yeah, I think I would pick San Diego over LA as well.
Yeah,
And
amen to
the
that.
Bay Area, it's a cool place to visit. I'll leave it at
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's
Coming
I trust me, I don't want to go back there, man.
anyway, so you dude, so you moved around quite a bit. How did you kind of, I don't know, like how did you find yourself in this high ticket sales space, this online money space to begin with?
Yeah, man. I think the best way to really paint the picture for everyone is I've always been pretty entrepreneurial growing up. Like, just imagine I was that kid selling lollipops in middle school and like selling t-shirts out of like the car in high school. So I always had this entrepreneurial bug. In fact, a lot of my initial start was actually where a lot of people might have gone through this was that drop shipping, e-commerce like world. So when I was about 18 years old, I was getting into this online space, wanted to go into drop shipping, had my own drop shipping store, got some success in there, not really anything to rave about. And so when I got to college, I was like, man, I see really two paths. I can either go into the stereotypical like tech bro Silicon Valley route, or I could really dive into more of this online high ticket space. So what did I do? I actually did both. So I started off in tech sales. So while I was still in college and Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, I was working full time as an SDR for tech sales, a company called
Mm.
MindBody.
Oh,
So got my reps up as a setter SDR at that company for a little bit. And then I actually went to work for a company called Salesforce. So
yeah,
Salesforce, bigger enterprise deals. I'm talking like the deals that were like multi-million-dollar deals, and like deal cycles were like 1, 2, 3+ years, long time.
yeah,
So I was like, all right, this tech money, this tech space is cool, but I wanted to find a lot more fulfillment, and I wanted to have a little bit more of that entrepreneurial bug itched, right?
yep,
So then I actually, this is a funny story for you, Dylan. A week after accepting a job offer, I moved over to San Diego. I accepted a job offer. I hated the job. I left after a week. And so I
yeah,
decided to actually start my own agency back in 2019 to get my first like real like online digital marketing remote business going.
yeah,
Did that for about a year. Was like the sales guy in that agency. I had a business partner that was from Canada. He handled the back end. I handled a lot of the front end. And then I just realized I was like, man, I'm doing this agency sales stuff. Like, why don't I just sell for other business owners and just focus on the thing I love? So
yeah,
in 2019, I had parted ways with my business partner, left the agency, and went full time into this high ticket remote sales world. So that's how I got
mm,
my start. I really, really love this space because there's so much fulfillment. There's so much like, actual like impact you make on people's lives. And so I've been in this high ticket closing space, specifically sales focused, since about late 2019.
yeah. Damn, it's a long time. You've probably seen a lot. You've probably seen a lot. So
Yeah.
what ultimately led you away from the traditional like tech sales? I mean, it's so easy to get comfortable, right?
Yeah.
And work your way up. And after 10 years in, it's like, dude, you're making top 1% money. I mean, technically, yeah, you're making very good money.
Yeah.
So like, what led you away with it? Especially after did you I'm sorry, did you graduate from school?
Yeah. Graduated.
Okay. So yeah, especially after putting in, all those years and you get the job and you work your way up a little bit, like Salesforce, everyone listening to this knows who Salesforce is. Um, like what was that point for you?
Yeah, man. That's a really good question. So I remember specifically the day that it was happening was actually in late July of 20 2018, heading into like 2019, right? So I had just actually gotten a job offer to Salesforce. And what was crazy, man, was, to be honest, I finessed that whole role, meaning most of the people that were getting on there were like from Ivy League schools and like Harvard, Brown, Stanford. And so for me, that year, Salesforce got rated the number one company to work for. And I remember going through that process as an intern and then getting a job offer and then being in my car and was like, dude, if this is what pinnacle peak is supposed to be like for people that are like graduating college, like anybody who works at Salesforce, great company, but it just wasn't for me. I was like, this fucking
Yeah.
sucks if this is number one, if this is my peak in life, man. So I really just knew for myself there was this calling to help more people on a personal level.
Hmm.
To answer your question of what inspired me to leave that, I just felt like I was a cog in the machine and I was just helping the big enterprise companies make more money.
Yeah.
There was this calling to, yeah, cool, the money was great. It was going to be a healthy, high six-figure income straight out of college. I'm sure all my friends would have wished for that position. Everyone was congratulating. People were like, "Oh man, you made it." And then I was just like, I kind of felt dead inside. I was like, if
Yeah.
this is what number one is supposed to feel like this sucks.
Yeah.
And
That's
so for
interesting.
me, I wanted something. I was being called to something for more impact, for more flexibility, and just being able to travel and be able to actually like do what I wanted to do. And number three, like I wanted to truly be part of something from like the ground up, like building something for people.
Mm.
And so after realizing those things, it was just, I talk about this a lot with my students and with my sales reps. It's like there's no wrong or right offer. It's just about getting clarity on like what is your values and finding the offer and team that's actually most alignment with that.
Yeah.
And I realized in that moment that corporate and tech sales and the current role there was just no longer in alignment with the vision that I had for myself for the future. So I had to leave.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, what was it like going from secure base pay, good earning potential, benefits, like security to, I think I'm going
Yeah.
to go do this agency thing with this guy in Canada. Like, was it scary, or did you already have it kind of going before you quit, or what was that like?
Dude, I had no idea what I was doing. No idea. I remember I had a photo and it died in my old phone. I wish I could post it on Twitter for the crew. But I remember I got this new high rise like apartment in San Diego. I had two of the roommates. And one of them that I was living with was my business partner. We had this rent that we now had to pay for. I was making $0 in income, barely had savings, was living off credit cards. And I lived in an inflatable bed in this really nice room in downtown San Diego in the skyscraper. But that room was empty, and I lived in an inflatable bed for about 6 months. So I was like grinding,
Yeah.
living off credit cards, trying to get my agency in profit. And then once it did get in profit, it got better. But the truth is, this is, I think, what a lot of people don't. I wish I could have told my younger self is understand there's a incubation period, there's a transition period towards really making real money in the online high ticket space. So either one should have a savings ready for at least a 3 to 6 month runway, at least,
Yep.
or two, and this is what I would have probably done is I would have gone continue the full-time job doing this on the side until I had consistency with this on the side and then transitioning out of my full-time.
Yeah.
I kind of just did the balls to the wall, like burn the boats mentality, which it ended up paying off. But to be honest, the pain that you have to go through is it's a lot, man. And so I don't think 9 out of 10 people are just not cut out for it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Now I'm very grateful because that's the environment that forced me to get good at sales. Like, guys,
Yeah.
there's nothing better to get better at sales when you actually have to close deals to eat.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, dude. It's funny, like all the guys that I speak to on here and just speak to in general that, they always had that kind of like entrepreneurial knack when they were young. You said selling lollipops and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then they always were faced with a decision to like commit or stay comfortable. And they committed, even though maybe they had to sleep on an air mattress for 6 months in a skyscraper, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's nothing that makes you sell more than having to sell to live. And, you know, I think, honestly, it's like, and a lot of the guys, people listening, they're guys, like young dudes trying to make the most of themselves. Like, it's really hard to replicate that.
Yeah.
It's hard to replicate the need to sell, to live, to eat, to keep going. And I think a lot of people, and luckily, when I made the jump, I made a big jump. Like I left a good job to do it, but
Yeah.
I luckily was not in the position of having to like sell to live because I had saved up and then did that. I had some runway, like you said, 3 to 6 months. Like I had runway,
Yeah.
which made it a lot easier. And that's like what I tell guys going forward. So like fast forward, how did we get off the air mattress, man? Did the agency take off a little bit, or did you get like into high ticket sales and then it happened?
Yeah. So let me just put it this way, y'all. It got better before it got worse, right? Like the amount of times that my family, my friends were just trying to get me back to a normal job, like amount of conversations that happened was enormous.
Yeah.
So I remember specifically, this was in 2020, like early 2020. I was on the last amount of my cash on hand. I remember I tried to go to Chipotle and my card got bounced because I didn't have any more money. Like it actually went in the negative. And my roommate came in and was like, "Hey, like I'll pay for it. You can just Venmo me later." And I was like, "Fuck, dude, I got to close a deal so I can Venmo this guy like later." Like that's where I was. And so this was the last resort. It was 2020. I had gotten approved for PayPal credit for the sales coach, Eli Wild. And for anyone out there who doesn't know, Eli Wild was Tony Robbins' number one sales guy. So Eli is one of the few people in the high ticket coaching space that I know that has sold over 9 figures in sales. Been in the game for a long time. 9 figures. Like it's, you'll get guys who maybe close 8 figures, but I don't know many guys who've closed 9 figures in the high ticket coaching space.
Yeah.
So I got approved for PayPal credit and had gotten into his program and was like, it was do or die. I remember thinking, and I was like literally at bottom, like rock bottom, Dylan. I was like, all right, this is the last thing I'm ever going to do. If it doesn't work out, I'm going back and getting a job. But my mindset was like, it's going to work out, right? I've bought a bunch of different courses, programs prior to that. And so what ended up happening was I got on PayPal credit for money I already didn't have. He got me from a 20% closing rate to about a 45-50% closing rate in a span of 6 months. So I had an offer that I was selling on, and then I absolutely just crushed. Ended up getting my first like 10K month back then. Absolutely crushed. And like things changed like that. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But what's crazy is it was not an overnight success. It was just the compounding of skill set and the tenacity to play the game long enough that the tipping point finally happened for me.
Yeah.
So then that's when I was like, oh crap. I am making enough money to just like bare essentials. Let me pay for rent. Let me get food. Let me pay off my debt. Let me pay off my credit cards. And then that's when the game really started getting fun.
Yeah. Do you think that I had the same mindset where it's like, hey man, I'm young. I know that I'm capable of more. Worst case scenario, I can go back to this because I already know how to sell. Do you think that kind of prompted you to take bigger risks because you knew that you could go back to like the 50 to 100K SDR job?
Dylan, that's such a great question because that's the only security I have. That is the only reason why I could keep moving forward because I remember back in 2020 when I invested in Eli, it was that the same exact thought is
Yeah.
I've invested time to build this skill set. I could always get another job and make money within 30 to 60 days. I could always do that. But the truth is back to what you were saying earlier, which was really important, which is there's that position of comfort for a lot of people. I think there's a real sweet spot that young men or young women go through when entering the space, which is they can either go for a life of comfort in like corporate sales and kind of get trapped in that. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want, right? Back to alignment. If that's what you want,
Yeah.
cool. But I knew I wanted a life of impact, a life of freedom, flexibility, be able to travel and work wherever I want, command my own hours. And really the most important thing was like have an uncapped potential for growth and income. Right.
Yeah.
And once I realized that, it was like the truth is the skill set's what's going to get me paid at the end of the day. Let me try one more time. I can always go back to a job. Where the
Yeah.
truth is, when you're older and you have a family and you have kids and security actually matters, you don't always have that opportunity. And so I knew I needed to do that when I was young and willing to take and eat shit, as opposed to like okay, let me spend like 5-10 years in tech sales. And then I'm like 35 and then I have a family. You don't have that much
Yeah.
liberty in that position. Like you
Yeah.
can, it might not be as responsible though.
It's funny because based on like the timeline and the way things are adding up, it sounds like we have done very similar things, but you just did it like a year and a half before me. I'm
Yeah.
like, just from piecing things together, I'd imagine you're like 26, 27, 28, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah. 26.
26. Okay. So yeah, I think you just did it like just before me, because it's like very similar, dude. I had the job. I could have stayed. I knew that there was more out there. I knew that I was young, and if I was going to do it, it had to be now. Worst case scenario, I could go back. And then I bought a course and committed, and it's worked out so far. So, um, very, very cool to hear. I didn't really expect to have like the same, not the same, but like similar story in that
Similar
context.
journeys. Yeah.
I think it is really comforting knowing that, like, dude, worst case scenario, I could go sell the shit out of some cars down the road. I think
Yeah.
a lot of
Exactly.
the a lot of these guys, and they're, a lot are younger, they get sold into like the high ticket sales lifestyle, but they don't really have the skill yet. They
Nope.
don't know how to sell things. They don't have results in any other industry. So it's like, if it doesn't work out, they're like panicking. It's like, oh, like now I have to go work at Walmart again or something like that, which that's why the runway is so important, and just managing expectations, man. I don't take, based off the conversation, I don't take you as the guy that's coming in and telling people, hey, I'll help you make 30K a month in 20 or like 30 days or something, right?
I'm
Some,
the complete opposite of
unfortunately,
that, Dylan.
right,
Like,
right.
the reason
Yeah.
why I'm the opposite of that, and I shot a video about this, about with Iman Godseen, kind of the crazy expectations he was setting for people. Um,
70%.
yeah, that 70% closing rate, and 10 calls per day. I think it's just funny. So, reason why I'm very against that is because that is the dream I bought into with other models, and is what set me up for failure. To be
Yeah.
honest, when something wasn't working out for 30 or 60 days, I'd quit. And one of the things I realized is this game of sales, why this was the model that worked for me compared to drop shipping, compared to Amazon FBA, to Amazon affiliate, e-commerce, or any of the other stuff, even agency stuff. Why this really worked for me was because I fell more in love with the game than the business opportunity, right? And what ended up happening is, when I fell in love with the game, just like LeBron James or a young Kobe Bryant, they're not going to stop playing basketball just because the money isn't there. They're playing basketball to play basketball. And
Yeah.
when I really got in the mindset of like, I'm playing this game of sales just because I love it, and I just want to get better. I want to get better at closing. I want to get better at my discovery, my objection handling. I want to get better like human psychology and connecting. Once I really focused on the skill set, that's when the big bucks started like coming in. And it's just what, like you said, the skill set. Alex Hormozy always talks about this. The skills is the number one thing that you should really be focused on. Most people should be in a season of skill acquisition first and then worry about the other stuff. The problem with some of those gurus is that they're selling having a season of just like making a bunch of money first, as opposed to developing the season of a skill, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I mean, it's crazy what some of these people are out here doing, and, you know, promising, and like, collecting money from people that just aren't in the position to get anything close to the results that they're advertising. It's I mean, two different ways to do things, right?
Yeah.
So you go on to be a rep. I don't necessarily need to know like the name, but I'm curious, like, your first offer that you closed on, what kind of offer was it?
Yeah, as a full-time closer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a couple. Dude, I've sold so many different offers. It's pretty crazy. So my first ever offer was like a lead gen agency for the fitness world. So gyms, selling lead gen to gyms. That's why I actually was studying Alex Hormozy in like Gym Launch back in 2019, was
Mm,
because like I was in that space.
yeah.
So that was my first offer. Um, got really good reps in there, but the money was crap. I mean, like, some of these gym bros are just like broke, dude. The
Yeah.
margins are like crap. So that was my first offer. And then I saw an evolution of me being everywhere from, I sold a dating offer one time for one of like the top dating coaches in the space.
Cool.
I sold a bunch of other lead gen agency stuff. So I've sold roofers, construction workers, I've sold like plumbers and service providers, all that stuff. Um, I've sold like business coaching. Those are some of my favorite offers just because that's a lot of like where my skill set in industry was
Yeah.
equipped. So a little bit more B2B, some higher level. So one of my favorite offers to sell was for this guy named Greg Hickman, Alt Agency.
Mm.
Was with that team for 2 years. When I onboarded with them, it was like I think they were making like 40K per month. I was one of the first sales hires in terms of being a closer. I think I was team member number 4. I was the lead advisor at that team, helped grow that offer to about 180 to 200K per month.
Mm.
So was like that's where I really started getting the groove of like my closing skills. Started consistently closing 40 to 50% a month. My highest closing was 67%. And most importantly, that's where I also started finding a love for sales coaching. So I really liked that offer because it's business ROI. It was the most I've kind of like felt most in pocket with. And it's where I did a lot of my like skill development.
Um, cool. Yeah, I think it's just part of the game to experience a bunch of offers before you start to really dial it in. There's one person that I know out of the hundreds that I know in this space where like their first offer
Yeah.
was the offer. Like it was the one they
Yeah.
stayed on, it's the one they got their first million on, million in sales on. But everyone else, it just kind of seems like a rite of passage to kind of just keep experimenting, keep meeting new people, trying new things until it finally clicks. And by that point, honestly, you've seen enough teams and you can kind of put the pieces together to see bigger picture, like what works and what doesn't. And then it's almost like a natural progression to like help people in a different way, right? Whether it's
100%.
coaching or a done with you, done for you service. So um, it seems like that's when you said I kind of got into the coaching stuff once you kind of saw things and had some success. Um, so that's super cool. You I'm sorry, like to like put a timeline on this when you started hitting those like 67% months and you
Yeah.
started like getting into coaching. When was that exactly?
Yeah. So that was, I started really getting the swing of things. I would say the like really peak around like 2021. So I got coaching with Eli late 2020. I started really picking up steam around 2021. In terms of where I closed 67%, that was 2022. And so for me, I was like, all right, cool. I really like this closing game. Where can I start really like leveraging like the coaching aspect of things? So I started actually, funny enough, and for anyone out there, like when you're kind of thinking about career progression or career development in like high ticket sales, what I did was I actually went to the business owner on Alt Agency and was like, hey, can I be a sales coach inside the program for our clients? He was like, yeah, sure. So I then started stepping more into coaching. So I started coaching the clients. And then I also started helping and coaching our internal team. I was like, man, I really like this. There's always a part of me that's going to love closing deals, though, Dylan. So even
Yeah.
I like, there's times where it's like, oh, my sales team is underperforming. Get me on a call. I'm going to close this deal. One call enrollment. Like it helps. It helps me stay on top of my game, but also it helps my team see the like, all right, cool. The guy we're following actually knows how to fucking sell, right?
Yeah.
So there's elements I'll still hop on sales calls from time to time.
Yeah.
Um, but really, my sales coaching like bug and itch really started coming when I was in the tail end of like 2021, early 2022.
Yeah.
And what I noticed is the more I did sales coaching, the better I got on sales calls. So it was like a win-win.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I mean, I think the, I found a similar result. The further into this, like high ticket sales and even just like sales in general that you get, you realize that it's a lot simpler at a high level. And like
It
all the
is.
little stuff that the newer guys are like, oh, what about this? What about that? It's like, you just do what you know to do, and you don't stress it, and you act like you show up and show that you know what you're doing. It's like people like to buy that much more than the guy who's like going line by line on the script, making sure they check all their boxes and all that little
Yeah.
stuff. So very interesting. I wanted to ask you because I got into the high ticket sales space like January 2022. That's like when I quit my job and came in.
Nice.
What before 2022, let's go back to like even 2020 potentially.
Yeah.
When it comes to finding these jobs for the sales reps, what are the differences, or what were the differences back then versus like now today?
Man, that is such a great question. Gosh, I wish I could tell myself this when I was younger. So here's the thing, y'all. The game of high ticket sales has evolved so much, even in just like the 4+ years that I've been here. Back in 2019, the Iman Gadzi back in the day was this guy named Dan Locke. So Dan Locke really popularized like the high ticket closer. And Dylan, back then it was crazy, bro. He set just some crazy expectations and told people who had zero sales skills that they could be a closer like within the first month. And the craziest part about this was business owners, because there was such a high need, were hiring people with zero sales experience to be a closer.
Yeah.
So back then, people were jumping, because right now you think about it, right? It's like setter, maybe hybrid setter closer, and then a closer, right? And then maybe after that, sales manager, sales lead. Back then, you could jump the ring of going from a zero sales experience straight to a closer. It was wild. It was Wild
Yeah.
West.
Yeah.
So finding an offer, as long as you said like, hey, I close for high ticket coaching companies, it was so easy. People could just like hop on and you could just connect. Back then it was just mainly Facebook groups. You could
Yeah.
connect with people and people were hiring left and right. Then after about a year or two of that, business owners got sick and tired of that crap. They're wasting money on these like guys who didn't know how to close deals at all. And so then the meta, or like the traditional way of doing things, was like, all right, cool. Now you got these guys like Traffic and Funnels, Cole Gordon's team, Sales Mentor on the Traffic and Funnels arm. They're like, all right, cool, guys. We're going to teach you how to become a setter first and then ascend into a closer. So then the
Yeah.
way that a lot of people would actually get opportunities there was working these Facebook groups and really like talking to like the recruiters at these big like recruiting sales agencies. So
Yep.
back then it was like Mike Mark, Cole Gordon, and Sales Mentor. Those were like the big three. So the easiest way for leverage back then was like you were talking to like the recruiting guy. I call them power brokers. I would always identify, okay, who are the head honchos, who are like the recruiting guys, who are the power brokers that can actually just facilitate me the opportunities.
Yeah.
And this still applies today, y'all. Like
Yeah.
instead of I don't recommend necessarily like DMing a bunch of business owners. You can, it's a lot of hustle. The best ways that I found the best opportunities, best offers is 80-20 rule. Find that one person who has access to all the opportunities. So Dylan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of view you as like a power broker because you're able to help source opportunities for a lot of these setters and these closers, right? You can be that one point of contact within your community. And if they have a strong relationship with you, they get access to some of the top offers and opportunities like that,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
right?
even dude, it's funny. Like even within, I've been running it for a year now, a little over, and as being a sales rep for a majority of that year, like I was able to capitalize on the stuff that goes through my own community as a sales rep, just because, I mean, people know that I run this thing and they know they can put offers in and they know that sales reps and business owners come together. So like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff and like there's a lot of people doing things similar where it's like you just
Yeah.
got to get in the crossroads of where all that stuff is happening.
Get in the
And
crossroads.
then instead of sending out like 100 DMs a day for 2 weeks, just send out like 5 good ones and connect with like the right people.
The right people.
You should do both. You should do both, but just connect with the right people and like don't be don't be super needy, don't be an idiot, don't be like desperate. Um and yeah, I mean, I think the people that I see get the results the fastest. That's what they do. So
Yeah, man. And that's what I personally found was it was like that phase 2 was like I just started identifying the core people that were like who had access to the top tier offers. And so
yeah,
my guy was Moose back in the day. Every time he had a good offer, I could literally just reach out to Moose and Moose would be like, "All right, dude, I got an offer for you." But I spent time really developing that relationship. So Moose knew I was a great closer and he would give me the best opportunities. So that's the caveat, right? Like you got to actually
yeah,
build a relationship with these power brokers. And then from
yeah,
there, and I think this is phase 3 for a lot of people, and it's gonna be a continued thing here, Dylan, is you gotta have a personal brand. If you have a
yeah,
real personal brand as a closer nowadays, or even as a setter, you are the signal amongst the noise for a lot of these sales managers and business owners.
yeah,
Like, I think
absolutely.
that was not necessary in 2019, 2020, but now is absolutely going to be necessary moving forward. Almost
Yeah,
all my opportunities given to me, I literally get a pick of the litter of the top opportunities as a closer before I became a sales manager because I built a personal brand on Facebook. People would be literally waiting at the door trying to poach me for my offers. And it was literally just because I would post sales material and I had a following and I had some good photos and a presentable profile picture. It wasn't even anything crazy.
yeah,
So I think that's the evolution for people they really need to think about, guys. If you're watching this, is if you really want to be the top 10% that gets the top 10% offers, you have to really start investing in your personal brand.
yeah, man. It's like, in traditional sales, it's the resume. In high ticket sales, it's the personal brand. And it can be on whatever platform you want it to be on. But
Right.
dude, the last 3 sales jobs that I had, including the one that I still have, um, I had no interviews for.
Yeah.
Like I
Me
had no
neither.
interviews because of the brand. It's like, oh, like Serial Sales wants to come close for us. Cool. Like let's bring them on.
Let's
Let's
do
see
it.
what we can
Yeah.
do. And that being said, like I think I'm a good sales guy. I would hope I'm a decent one, but like
Yeah.
I never position myself as like, oh, like I do everything the perfect way. There's no better way to do it. Like I don't position myself as like above others. Like I just position myself as like I'm a sales guy. I'm doing this with you guys, and I'm posting about it. And even then, just by having the audience, whether it's on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever, it's so valuable, dude. So valuable. It opens so many doors.
It does.
So, and that was one thing I wanted to ask you too, because I started on Twitter and that's kind of my main thing. And I'm trying to branch out now. But you said you started on Facebook and then you came to Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you, and being in this space, you might know a guy named John Cardis. He's on Facebook, came to Twitter. He's
Yeah.
in the,
I've actually got hopped on Zoom with John.
okay. So yeah,
Yeah.
he was on Facebook doing a lot of his work and he came over to Twitter. And now I was talking to him earlier and he was just saying like, dude, now Twitter is like the place for what I do. Like Twitter is key for this high ticket sales stuff. What do you see as far as like that landscape? Like which platform is the one that these people should build on?
It's so funny. So I hopped on Zoom with John and we were just chatting 2 weeks ago, literally talking about this because he's very similar and we started around the same time and it was the same thing. He was on Facebook 2019,
Mhm.
2020, right? And so what I noticed was I asked myself this really important question when I really wanted to start my personal brand this year was like, where are my people at? The thing was the game changed. They used to be on Facebook. Like for anyone out there who might just be getting started in the space, everyone how they sourced their opportunities back in the day was all Facebook. You were
Yeah.
not sourcing opportunities on Twitter. And so I built most of my personal brand on Facebook and then started to realize that like all the next wave of this high ticket sales and the sales pros and even just this niche that we have on money Twitter is all on Twitter. It's no longer on Facebook. And so I had to adapt there, Dylan. And what I really started to notice was Facebook just became a very transactional environment where Twitter is very much a real community. There's like very real conversations happening. I mean,
Yeah.
even just the ability, you'll get your auto DMers, sure. But just even the fact that you and me are having a conversation right now that just was a genuine, authentic conversation on Twitter, the community here is so much stronger. I think there's a lot more of a stronger like sharing of ideas and thought leadership here on Twitter, right? People are like actually willing to share some real juice.
Yeah.
And there's just this strong like humor and like just bro culture where people can kind of actually
Yeah.
like it's almost like water cooler talk, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where sometimes Facebook was so like it was too transactional and everyone was always trying to sell something and like there was always some hidden agenda. Where Twitter, it's like, yeah, you got some stuff to sell, but there's also some real conversations happening, just like right now.
Yeah.
You know, I hopped on with John just because we just wanted to chat and we saw each other on Twitter and we're like, dude, I've been seeing you on my feed. Let's just connect. So I think that's why the shift to Twitter has been a lot more prominent the past year, specifically for the space. And I believe it's because also a lot of younger guys are heading into the space. There's not a lot of 18, 19, 20-year olds hopping on Facebook trying to check all these things out.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
just not a
man.
thing.
I think LinkedIn is just another step higher as far as like it's just too structured, man. Twitter's more
Too
fun. It
structured.
seems more genuine. Um, I like honestly, dude, I kind of just like the platform and like how it works better than
Yeah,
Facebook. But like I
100%.
think the issue with Facebook too is like a lot of these guys, because Facebook is as big as it is, and Twitter's massive as well, but like all the like high ticket sales groups and communities on Facebook, they're just like they've played the volume game so hard to where they've funneled so many people in of like all different parts of life, like parts of the world and areas of
Yeah.
interest and expertise. Like it just feels like it's like there's no focus, you know? It's just
There
like how many
isn't,
people can we get in this Facebook group?
dude, and it becomes this game as opposed to like, oh, let me actually build some relationships. I also
Yeah.
noticed one of the things that's really important about building a personal brand on Twitter, and this is going to be really useful for anyone who wants to kind of like tap in that phase three, is the level of virality and reach that you can have with a small following is phenomenal here on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like I could reach people who aren't actually following me so much easier here than on Facebook or Instagram.
Hmm.
And especially when you're trying to grow a personal brand, that reach is so important.
Yeah.
It just doesn't exist on Facebook.
Yeah. And I hope, there's been a lot going on with Twitter, with like, Elon and now it's
Elon,
like,
yeah.
it's called X or whatever. So I hope it continues to be a good place for this industry. But honestly, man, just like it's changed so much over the last 3 years, like this time 3 years from now, it could be a
Yeah.
totally different thing, right? People could be on freaking Reddit. Dude, I know sales
Who
Reddit's a
knows?
thing, man. I don't know if you're over there. I'm not over there, but I've
I've seen
seen.
it. They talk about it.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah. So yeah, man, Twitter's a great place. I'm glad that I like planted my roots there and continue to like show up and contribute.
Yeah.
Um, but getting back to kind of like your, moving across your timeline here. So you started having these good months. You started realizing like, dude, coaching is something that I enjoy. It makes
Yeah.
me, I'm happy to do it. And it is like, it's the next step up. When did you realize that it's like, okay, like, I'm really good at helping this group of people. Maybe I can go and help multiple groups of people. When did that click for you?
Yeah, in terms of like going from the ascension of being a like a full-time closer to like the fractional
Yeah,
sales
yeah,
manager that I am now. Yeah, man. So there was a big realization that I had, which was there's not really a career development path that's laid out for like the high ticket sales people,
yeah,
right? It's like, hey, go be a setter. All right, now go be a closer.
yeah,
It's like, okay, cool. That like lasts for a couple of years. And then you're like, all right, what next? So for me, I'm always in a constant evolution of like my career, my skill set, and my growth. That's why I left tech sales in the corporate world, was because it was like there was kind of this cap that was being created, and it was like, all right, cool, be an SDR, then be a BDR, then be an AE, and then maybe go into management, right? And so at least there was like a structure of how to go and ascend. There wasn't really for the high ticket sales world. At least no one was really talking about it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, damn, I'm not going to compromise my growth and my capacity. So it actually came to me when I was on sabbatical. So I had left the full time closing job, right? Working in 2020, about April, and decided for 4 months that I was just going to go travel and go on a sabbatical. And really, the intention of that whole 4 month break of traveling and going on sabbatical was to identify what I wanted to do next. And in that moment, I actually had and really gotten a lot of clarity of my next vision for myself. And I realized that I wanted to extend my contribution and impact for the whole sales world and just extend that reach at scale. So that's when I started. I was like, all right, cool. Let me do this for one team, see if I can do this for another team, then another team, and develop a system that actually allows me to work with multiple people, multiple teams at once.
Yeah.
So I was able to figure that out, and it's still continuing to improve, right? I'm still figuring out how I can now train the next set of leaders to then take over me, right?
Yeah.
And then that way I'm kind of more just allowing myself to think at a higher level. Um,
Yeah.
because right now, a lot of the stuff that I do for people is like end to end recruiting and hiring, managing and training the sales reps, right? Helping with the systems and processes, helping with the business owners, thinking about consulting them in systems and scaling and all that stuff. So I do everything from end to end. So what ended up happening for me was like, all right, man, I'm always in a game of trying to figure out how to gain more leverage in my life and in my career.
Yep.
So Dylan, are you familiar with like Naval Ravikant?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Naval Ravikant, he has a book, The Almanac. Frequent read for me, the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. And so I realized I was like, all right, well, I want more leverage. And most of my leverage right now is just purely labor. How then can I start productizing myself to have media or training or even capital to start going into this stuff? And so that's when I started really thinking about my personal brand, how I was creating systems for training for my people, how I was creating like just different ways to leverage myself with automation. So I'm not constantly like going back
Yeah.
and forth with all manual stuff. And so that's when I really started being able to expand myself. So what inspired me from all of that was when I went in my sabbatical, I asked myself this question, which is like, how can I help more people at scale? And I realized I can help a lot of people one on one taking sales calls, or the next level of growth for me was being able to help people at scale by actually training salespeople to help more people. And I could span whether it's in the weekend or at night. I have salespeople who are closing, helping me close deals for my teams, and I get to make a contribution in their life too.
Yeah.
So for me, it was more of a contribution impact thing as opposed to a money thing.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I've made more money, but it really was led from the value of like, how do I become a better contribution for more people? If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. That's interesting. And I think that's something I know I've heard before. It's like, I kind of just followed what my heart was telling me, and I ended up making more money by doing
Yeah,
that, versus you hear it the
100%.
other way around sometimes, and it's like then they end up in a place of despair, and they're like they're not happy and they're broke, and like it's just not a good situation.
Yeah,
Um,
that was 2019, Larry, right? That was me trying to figure out how to make as much money as possible soon, and it just like wasn't clicking that well.
yeah, yeah. So I'm curious, man. Do you So that's my dog that just had surgery. Sorry, she might be
No
whining and
worries.
stuff. Um, do you work with any specific niches of? Are they all coaching businesses, or is any agencies? Or
Yeah, great question. So I like to play in the wheelhouse of the coaching space, right? Now, one of my teams has a SaaS software element to it, but the majority is the coaching. So I have one offer that's a B2B coaching. I have one team in offer that's working on a more B2C biz op.
Okay.
So they're selling more of like the biz op area. I have one that's actually a health and wellness offer, which is fun.
Cool.
It has its own challenges, right?
Yeah.
And then just another like very general business coaching offer. So
Yeah.
those are the 4 sales teams I'm working with right now. And it poses all its quite different challenges, but they're all
Yeah.
fun. Um, yeah, very nuanced
Okay.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you like when it comes to getting these new clients for your like fractional sales director agency, I guess you call
Yeah.
it. Is it a big like network thing, or are you doing like some cold outreach, or like how have you gone about building up? You said you have, I'm sorry, 4 teams that you're working with.
4. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
How have you gone?
it's great question, man. It's really just been about getting myself in the right room. So a lot of these introductions have actually come mainly through word of mouth. I've joined
Cool.
masterminds and communities that people were like referred me out and actually, name dropped me, and I end up having a very thorough conversation.
Cool.
I do not like doing any cold outreach simply because I have a very big qualification process for a lot of these people, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not when I was an agency owner trying to just get like, different clientele for lead gen, like honestly, I would take most people here because it is a lot of like the rev share and it's very growth partner esque. The wrong client will waste your time.
Yeah.
So I'm not always like even actively seeking a bunch of people. In fact, a lot of people reached out to me and I have to very much say like, hey, like I just I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
Um, which is it's a really good thing because the people that I work with are people that I just love working with and they're fun, right? Because even just having one team that does super well is game changing. I mean, think about it. You get a company to 500K per month, you're taking a percentage of that, right? That's good money. Generally, what I'm looking for is about 4 to 5% rev share, not including the retainers. But I have one team that's on 10%.
Yeah.
So think about that. You put that team to 500K per month at 10%. That's a 50K nice little check that comes in each month.
Yeah. Man,
So
how
you don't need that many, to be honest.
yeah, that's what I was gonna, I mean, we were talking about John. I was speaking to him like earlier today. We grabbed coffee. Shout out
Yeah.
John. Um he does something that's similar, and he does it with a lot of teams. Like,
Yeah.
I know just doing it well with one team is a task of itself.
It is,
How
dude.
do you do it with 4 teams?
Yeah, man. So a lot of it comes down to so one of the things that I didn't want was I didn't want like a big team internally in the agency or consultancy. It's more of a consultancy. So I actually work with the business owners to leverage a lot of their resources. So for some of my teams, I have setter coaches. So I think
Cool.
there's a guy on Twitter. Sorry, I'm gonna butcher. I don't know his last name, but Justin, the guy who works with
That's the
I think
boy,
he's yeah, Justin is the
Justin
man.
Schmidt. Yeah, yeah,
He made a post about how important it is to have a setter manager and setter coach, and I 100% agree. That's part of the leverage for me, man. Is like I don't try to do everything myself. I try to train up the next leader and help delegate a lot of this. Like, for example, I like primarily just working with like closers and the business owners.
yeah,
Working with business owners to find a setter coach or to make their lead setter like a setter manager, setter coach has been like one thing that's worked really well for me. That way I can kind of just oversee what some of the setters are doing and let the setter coach do a lot of the training. So that's one form of leverage, right?
yeah,
Number two is standardizing and productizing a lot of the training. So putting together like internal courses for the team. So standardizing onboarding. So a lot of it is self onboarding for people, right? Having my processes and playbooks in place that helps streamline a lot of different things,
yeah.
right? And then
Cool.
from there, it's really just getting a clear cadence and like what are the absolutely essential meetings. I'm not a big fan of a lot of wasteful meetings. So for a lot of my sales teams, for example, for me, my closers, I know I can get them results to KPI and above with only 2 1 hour closing or closer coaching meetings a week. So I'm
Mm,
not meeting with them that like every day. And then a lot of the back and forth is just through Slack, helping streamline the communication there. And if I need to delegate it to any of my other like closer or setter coaches on the teams, I go from there. So to answer
yeah.
your question, systems, training, and delegating to like internal coaches within the teams.
Yeah. And you keep like for the different clients, do you keep all the meetings and stuff separate, or do you put some of that stuff together?
So I keep them pretty separate because the advantage that people will hire me on is because like I'm internally part of their team. It's not like a done with you group coaching program, right? Like I'm in their corner and they have me as like an internal member of their team slash consultant, right? So the meetings itself are pretty much separate.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I've found that works well is like I've just identified that most people are just having a lot of wasteful meetings that aren't very actionable. So anything that's very specific or very specialized, like I'm generally just shooting looms or like voice messages back and forth with people in Slack. So a lot
Yeah.
of people were like, for example, they'll try to get you in a meeting for like 30 minutes to solve a problem. Oftentimes, what I've found is this can be solved with a 5 to 10 minute loom and some
Hmm.
back and forth on Slack. I
Yeah.
believe Alex Becker was one of the key people to help me really like realize this. Like Alex Becker, when he was growing Hyros, was like not even really hopping on any team meetings that were unnecessary and
Yeah.
just got really good at communication via Slack and like looms and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's. I mean, dude, you can't. There's not enough hours in the day to not take advantage of that kind of stuff. Because if you're just hopping on meetings for the sake of hopping on meetings, you're saying the same stuff over and over, and it's not good. It's not
Yeah,
good. And that's, I mean, man, that's another, you can be a good closer, but that's a whole other skill set is management, coaching, training, systems, all that, which,
it is, man.
it is, oftentimes a natural progression. Like you said, there's no like, you go setter to closer, then what? Like you can close for a while and you can make good money, similar to, you and I were both in the jobs outside of school where
Right.
we're doing fine, but it's like, what's next? And that's probably consistent throughout sales reps and really most industries. They always go on to start either another version of what they've been doing or something completely new, whatever, but just pushing to the next thing. Um,
Exactly, man.
so I'm curious, like, you've been around since the 2020 and you've seen the space progress from then into what it is now. What are some of your predictions for like what is to come for the high ticket sales landscape?
Love that question, man. So there's a couple things. I think first things first, like this space is definitely going to be more saturated. Um, which I think is actually funny enough a good thing for people who are like who actually know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to be the more of the signal amongst the noise. You're going to be even more valuable if you're actually good at what you're doing.
Yep.
I think it's a positive thing. Now, is it always a good thing for business owners because business owners now have to sift through more people? Maybe not. But as a closer, as a sales rep, like this is the time, guys. Like you're in a very important pivot point. Like invest in getting good now.
Yeah.
Because it's like what you were saying earlier, Dylan. Like when you're at the top of this game, or even you get past the first like 1 to 2 years of grinding, it's kind of just pretty simple and it's really fun. It's
Yep.
like I don't really worry about the initial things that I was worrying about the first 1 to 2 years. Like
Right.
my advice is like, guys, know it's gonna suck for about a year, maybe two, but know if you can make it past those first 2 years, you're going to be at a place where you're getting the commissions, like you have the time freedom, you have the travel freedom, you have the flexibility, like all the things that you were promised from like Iman.
Yeah.
It happens around like after year two. Like let me just be real.
Yeah. Yeah,
Here's the
man.
thing: most people are going to quit by then. Just the reality of
Right.
it. Most people are going to quit. So
Yeah.
if you can get past that, you can reap the rewards. And at the top, like things just become pretty efficient and easy. Like I don't really struggle with any of this stuff. I'm
Yeah,
grinding and hustling less now than I was as an SDR, to be honest. Even though I'm doing more high level stuff, the grind at the SDR setter level is a grind, y'all.
right.
I applaud y'all.
And man, good work and a personal brand. It compounds like you could not imagine. You
Yep.
know, like you said most of your clients come off of referrals. Like it's a result of those two things, and maybe some
Yeah.
other stuff too. But yeah, you should, like, if you're building anything in this online space, like just document it somewhere, put it somewhere, and like let other people know what you're doing. Because otherwise, like, dude, I if I'd never started on Twitter, I would probably still be stuck in the like flywheel of like trying to land a good closing role, you
Yes.
know? Yeah, and
Amen to
not,
that, man.
maybe not stuck, like still looking for it, but I would not be in the position that I am now, where it's now like I'm working with the reps and the business owners, and still, now I'm closing on a good offer. So it's like personal brand is responsible for a lot of that. I'm curious, do you think AI is coming to knock some of these guys out, some of these sales reps?
So there's two things, and I want to bring it back to the personal brand after this too, Dylan,
Yeah,
because I think there's a piece there that what you said was so key. So I think will knock some opportunity in terms of the setters, because if there's AIs that get really good, there might not be as much opportunity for setting the DM setting at least. Now, if we're talking about AI on the phones and on Zoom, I think it's going to be a while for that to truly like replace the closer, simply because like humans are humans for a reason.
yeah,
To be able to actually connect, like if we could just make logical reasons all day, like we wouldn't need sales reps. The
yeah,
reason why we need closers is because you need an emotional connection to get someone over an emotional hurdle. If it was just a logical hurdle, sales pages could do that for people.
yeah.
So I
That's
don't
true.
believe like AI is necessarily going to replace closers anytime soon. Setters, there might be a little bit of a shift.
Yeah,
Now, I think if you can be like kind of like almost a cyborg, meaning you're a closer that knows how to utilize AI, it's game over, bro. Like that's the
yeah,
real evolution. If you know how to
yeah,
do that stuff.
yeah. Dude, this space in 10 years, like, I don't even think we can begin to imagine what is going to be happening. But I'm glad to be in now when I am, and not
Yeah.
then.
It is the great time. And to go back to the whole personal brand thing, man, this is what I notice is like even more important. So the next evolution of sales pros, if you guys want to get ahead and actually have like a unique advantage, like there's a couple things that I think is really important. One, you need to be a sales pro that actually knows how to use AI to your advantage instead of being used by AI. Two, you need to be a sales rep that's consistently developing your skill set, right? Like that can never stop,
Yeah,
right? Like there's just a level of mastery that just needs to continuously happen. And then three, to tie it back to personal brand, one of the biggest advantages that I found, Dylan, and maybe you've realized it as well, or maybe you haven't, but when you're in
yeah,
corporate, your reputation and your personal brand really just exists within the silo of your corporation. So, oh man, Josh is the top sales rep at Salesforce. The only real people who know that are people in Salesforce and maybe the guys on LinkedIn, right? And so it kind of just stays within that industry. It doesn't really like translate or evolves that well. And
yeah,
so they're missing something really important, which is the compound effect. Why, as sales pros, you guys really need to find the power of personal brand is there is a compound effect that happens in this online high ticket space. If you build your personal brand as a sales pro and one day, 3 years later, you decide you want to go into a coaching business or any other business, you're compounding your network over those years for all people in the online space. We're not just
yeah,
talking about Salesforce anymore. We're now talking about people in America, in the UK, in Australia, all across that space. And that compounding continues to happen year after year after year,
yeah,
not just the 3 years that you were at that company for. Makes
yeah.
sense?
You learn so many complementary skill sets. I mean, just from being a sales rep, yes, but
Yeah.
building a brand, like it's so many people want to do that. Like if you can manage to do that, potentially help people do that. And then if you know how to sell and you know how to build a personal brand, you can help people put together programs. Like there's so many different ways that you can run with it.
Right.
Um, which like,
Definitely.
dude, I always knew that personal brand was important, but like having this conversation is just kind of solidifying for me in my mind, like how important it is. And
Yeah.
it's really is like it's hard to put like a price on what something like that is worth because I mean, at time and time again, just from existing on these platforms, I'm always surprised with what comes into my inbox or like what I see or what connections I make. So, um, man, it's so important. Do you
Yeah,
think
man.
that you would be in the position you are now if you hadn't built it or like anywhere close to where you are now?
Yeah. So I think to answer your question, the my vision got bigger after I actually started building a personal brand. So I think I wouldn't have as been as I wouldn't have been as ambitious or like really seeing what's possible in the next evolution if I didn't build a personal brand. So let me get tangible.
Yeah.
I didn't know that Twitter could bring me some of my top closers on my sales teams. I was just like, dude, I thought I was just going to build a personal brand so that I could just like connect with people and network, but I didn't realize, okay, cool, these like having a personal brand can actually help from a talent acquisition standpoint. It can help for just a networking standpoint. It can help, the act of writing helps you solidify your concepts and helps you have much more clear thinking, right? And then also too, it's like the open door policy. It's like there's these doors that just open up that you couldn't even think about. Like
Yeah.
us hopping on this podcast, I was not thinking, like that was not a thought in January where it was like, oh, I didn't know I could do this. Like it
Yeah.
just kind of popped up and it works.
Yeah.
So what I really noticed is, yeah, maybe I could still continue making money and building financial capital, but I didn't realize how powerful social capital truly is in this next wave of the high ticket sales space.
Yeah. Yeah, and even aside from the sales stuff that we do, just the personal brand. It's funny like how this has turned so much into personal brand talk because it's so
Yeah.
true. It's like aside from the sales stuff, man, it's like it's valuable in a lot of other ways. A lot of other ways.
Right. Because,
Especially
Dylan, let me ask you this, right? How many guys out there have coaching and sales training programs? Right? A bunch. But
yeah.
how many people are actually like teaching sales pros on how to brand themselves online and actually find real opportunities for the top 1% offers and build an awesome network? There's not many,
No,
right? And it's a
it's not.
crucial piece for the next piece of the puzzle. And we're at a very
Yeah.
important piece because prior, it wasn't really that crucial or important, but now it's becoming more important every single month, every single year as things change.
Yeah. Man, I got to go harder. I got to go post more tweets.
Yeah, man. I'm like, man, maybe I shoot a video after this. Who knows?
I'm gonna go edit a short form video. Um, my I don't know if it's picking up in the mic, but my dog is crying for the next round of her meds after her surgery.
Oh,
So,
no worries. I don't hear it too
um,
too hard at all. I don't really notice it, so you're good.
okay, cool, that's good. But anyways, yeah, we've had a pretty thorough chat, and I'm sure we're gonna continue to talk outside of this as well. Um, but this has been a really good episode. Like I didn't really know what to expect coming in because it's our first time meeting, but I think
Yeah.
especially sales reps who are consistently pushing for the next level, whether you're already in high ticket sales or not. It's going to be a really good episode for them to listen to. So I'm glad that we hopped on. And also for everyone listening, this was like a last minute play, man. I hit you
Yeah.
up like
Last
four
night.
hours ago. I was like, hey man, someone like fell out and I need, another guest for this week. You think you can swing it? And then made it happen. And now like, I mean, I feel like I just got to know somebody that is really good to know in this corner of the internet. So, um, personal brand, man. I DM'd him. it
Hey,
happened. And
the magic's right
yeah,
there, right? It's a product of
so
exactly what we're talking about, Dylan. Right.
yeah. Well, no, dude, I do appreciate you coming on. Where can the people find you, and how can they work with you?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So definitely follow me on Twitter if you guys want like sales coaching. Follow me at Larry Antiporda. It's just my first and last name. Um, my branding name is Sales Sensei, so that's kind of my alter ego in sales. If you just want to follow my lifestyle stuff, like my traveling, things I like doing in New York City, some of the business things are more on Twitter. The more personal life stuff is on Instagram. That's at Lantaporta. So it's L, just the first initial of my first name, and then Antiporta, my last name. So
Cool.
follow me on there, y'all. If you want to work with me, I'm actually about to launch a community here shortly, probably in the next 30 to 60 days. It's funny because I've had people like hit me up and they're like, hey, do you have a coaching program course? And I literally don't have anything to sell people right now because my primary focus is my sales teams. But I
Yeah.
am thinking of launching a community here in the next 30 days. If you guys want to just get in my ecosystem, get in my environment, um, just hit me on Twitter, hit me with sales, just hit me with sales with DM. And we'll connect. I'll put you guys in the waiting list. Building together like a much vaster community, talking about different things from how do you actually approach like your overall sales career? How do you approach the mindset? What is the career development? What does personal brand look like? So we're talking about personal brand today. There's some sales coaching in there. And really my intention, y'all, is just to like get people in the right rooms. Dylan, I don't know about you. There's a lot of in-person mastermind events for like business owners and entrepreneurs. One of the things that I really want to start doing is let's get some badass sales pros in the right rooms together. I don't think there's enough of that. So that's one thing that I kind of have in the horizon, that I want to even get the guys like you, Dylan, possibly be speakers at some of these events and just get some meetups for this world because I think it's a lost need right now.
Yeah. Funny you mentioned that, and I might plug it here since you mentioned it.
Cool. Look at man.
John Cardis and I are hosting something in Austin. That's why we met today to finalize it. Flyer is almost ready to go out, but Austin, Texas, it's open to anyone in high ticket sales, recruiting, or the owners of the offers.
Doing it.
We think it's a good central location. So September 9th, it's kind of going to be like a weekend thing, a chill meetup.
Nice.
Um, so if you're available September 9th, come on down. There's gonna be a lot.
Dude,
Like we
give me
think
the
we can drum
details,
up.
man. Give me the
Yeah, yeah.
details.
We think we
You're
can
talking
drum
my
up a
language.
good. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. We think we can get a good amount of people down, and it's open for anyone. So
Cool.
should be a good time. But
Hell yeah.
anyways, if you guys made it this far, be sure go connect with Larry, go learn from him, come to the event in Austin and meet hopefully both of us. Otherwise, you'll meet a bunch of other people. And yeah, I appreciate you guys listening. Episode 25. Larry, thanks for coming on, man.
Likewise, y'all. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you guys have any questions or just need anything, just slide in my DMs. I can help you guys out. There is a lot of people who go in those inboxes, so be patient. But thank you guys for listening and appreciate your guys' time. Cheers.
For sure. Alrighty. Cool.